Across the Obelisk is a deck-building roguelite developed by Dreamside Games and published by Paradox Interactive. Taking place in a medieval fantasy, think something alongside of D&D. Similar games to Across the Obelisk include Darkest Dungeon, Monster Train, and Slay the Spire. However, I personally believe that Across the Obelisk is the best one. So without further ado, here's why I recommend Across the Obelisk. Across the Obelisk offers a wide cast of characters, each having their own specialty playstyle, who all fit within 4 different classes. You have the Warrior, specializing in blocking and dealing physical damage. There is the Scout, with their jack-of-all-trade playstyle, the more utility character of the bunch. The Mage, who bends the elements to their will. And the Healers, primarily a support character, but with the potential to pump out some serious damage. Each class has 4 different characters, in the base game that is, with DLCs adding some more later down the line. And each character has different traits, and for example, let's take a look at Magnus, an old grizzled veteran of the Wolf Wars. His character sheet states that he is a balanced warrior who excels in both attack and defense. Your basic starter character, 100 base HP, 17 speed, which determines the turn order or initiative. He starts with 1 initial energy, and getting an additional 3 every turn, with some decent resistances. Comparing that with another warrior like Heiner, for example, a big burly golem with a giant shield who plays more defensively, focusing on protecting himself and others with his armor. His stats reflect this as well. He starts with 126 base HP, 11 speed, 1 initial energy, and 3 additional 1 every turn. But he has a different set of resistances. This kind of variety can be found in all classes across all characters, really making it so that you can customize your party to your exact liking. Add an uncountable amount of class and character cards, and topping it off with a massive skill tree, there are almost countless ways of playing the game. Progression is twofold. There is a player rank, which leads to unlocking perks that give a wide range of bonuses that you can customize however you like. In addition, we have a character type progression, where you progress with certain characters in your party. This includes things such as better starting equipment and different bonuses depending on what they specialize in. We also have cosmetics such as card backs and skins. This is all done by attempting many different runs, with your party growing ever stronger as you fine-tune your playstyle. With the basic concept out of the way, let's dive into the stats and the actual gameplay. This game has a lot going on, and to be honest, it can be quite intimidating when you first step in, with all these stats and bonuses and buffs and debuffs. But once you get going and you get the ball rolling, it's very satisfying. The game also does a great job with its many tooltips and glossary. If this is your first time playing the game, I highly recommend taking a look at the glossary. It is a great starting point to get you familiar with the game's many systems. There is a lot going on in this game, but for now, I'll try to keep it simple. We'll dive into auras and curses, which are pretty much the buffs and debuffs of the game, with auras being blue and curses being red. Now, this is going to get a little technical, but bear with me. Auras are statuses that give benefits to the affected character. Each aura can have any number of charge that applies it, which determine the power and duration of the aura. Think increased protection, healing, or damage boosting effects. Every turn, the aura's charge is reduced by 1 until it disappears, unless purged by a specific card that will remove X amount of auras. Curses, on the other hand, are the opposite of auras. They apply negative effects to the character. The duration and power is also based on the same principle. Charges equal duration and strength. Curses can be removed by dispelling them. In addition, curses can also be prevented by applying the buffer aura to any character. It is also important to know that some of these are not stackable, such as Buffer and Courage. Now let's take a look at some curses and auras in action. Going in depth into each and every single curse and aura would be way too long of a video, so down in the description below I will leave a link to a Steam guide that I found that is very well made and very detailed. However, we do need to learn the basics. Let's start with block. Block is a crucial part of the game. 90% of your block will come from your warrior character. Keeping it simple, block is a stackable aura that prevents 1 damage per charge, and all charges will be removed at the end of the round, no matter how many you have left. It's easy to burn through a lot of energy and get a lot of armor, or block, just to lose it at the next round. Unless you apply Fortify to a character, an aura that allows for your armor to be carried over into the next round. Now, you can see how this can get very powerful. These are the types of auras I tend to run. Thorns is a common aura with doing exactly what it sounds like, dealing 1 damage per charge to the incoming attacker and losing 1 charge at the end of each turn. You also have healing auras such as Regeneration, which 1 charge equals 1 health, Vitality, which increases your max HP by 5 per charge, Fast, which gives you +2 speed per charge, and Sharp, which increases slashing and piercing damage by 1 per charge. Those are only a few examples, but there are 24 total auras in the base game. With curses, we'll start simple, with Bleed. 1 charge removes 1 health, and this taking effect at the start of the round. Burn deals 1 damage at the start of the round as well. Chill decreases the character's speed by 1 per 5 charges, and Poison deals 1 damage at the end of the round. The Wet Curse boosts any lightning damage applied, which deals damage to the target's sides at the top of the round, while also removing Burn, while Sanctify is a reverse thorns that heals the attacker by 1 for each charge. I also wanted to mention Sight, which is a curse that lets you see your opponent's hand, which allows you to plan for your next move. There are a total of 21 curses in a base game, which you can reference that link that I talked about earlier. That will help you get familiar with all of them. There are also a few card-specific terms that I think are important. Chain is one of them, Discover is another, Purge and Dispel, as I mentioned earlier, but you also have Vanish cards that can only be played once per combat, and you also have Innate cards that are placed at the top of your deck during any combat. There are 9 different damage types in this game. We have Slash, Blunt, Piercing, Fire, Cold, Lightning, Holy, Shadow, and Mind. These 9 damage types are affected by resistances, each one having different effects on different resistances. With all that said, how does combat actually work? Well, it's actually quite simple. As soon as the combat begins, the status's effect activate, followed by corruption effects. Speed takes effect, and the initial initiative is set. When it is a character's turn, the applied auras and curses take effect then. And if they have a pet, their pet card is also played. Followed by items you might have being triggered, and then your hand being drawn. From there, we have the basic concept of energy or mana, and the game is played like any other card battler. Followed by end of combat effects being triggered and moving on to the next character in initiative, and or starting a new turn, with rinse and repeat being the main formula. With all these game mechanics out of the way, how do you actually play the game? Well, there are 3 main ways. We have the story mode, or adventure mode, the Obelisk challenge, a more randomized mode, and the weekly challenge, where you can compete on the leaderboards. I want to focus more on the adventure mode, as this is how you progress the story and unlock new characters, and each new run retains some bonuses from the previous. Adventure mode takes you through a series of node-covered maps, starting in Act 1, which will always be the Kingdom of Sininthia, plopping you in the first town of the game, a safe havens of sorts. Every town you will come across will always be your first interaction on any new map, and each contain the following: an arcane forge, where you can craft cards, an altar to upgrade your cards, Zingara's cart, where you can pay gold for a random drawing of cards, the armory/pet shop, where you can buy items and pets, and finally the church, where you can remove cards. In order to interact with these locations, the game has 2 different kinds of currencies, gold and blue crystals. Gold is mostly used for items and pets and Zingara's cart, whereas blue crystals is your card-related currency. Towns are also upgradable by finding supplies. These upgrades vary and never reset, so any boost or discount unlocked through the upgrades will stay there with every new run you start. In addition, this is where you will find gold and crystals from your 2 previous runs that you can collect and use to give you a head start on your new runs. And when you have fully upgraded your town, you can sell your supplies for said gold and blue crystals. Once you decide to leave town, you will travel across the map from node to node, each having either a combat encounter or more role-play-ish scenarios. These vary and can include meeting characters or pillaging a home, for example, which are usually always done through a card check of sort. drawing cards at random and adding the energy cost of them to determine if you were successful. Adventure mode is also how you unlock all the different characters, each having their own mini quest you have to complete in order to unlock them. Otis, for example, the Pig Pope, in order to unlock him, you will need to accept his quest at the Isolated Chapel, which then points you in the direction of Yager, who you must defeat. Pets follow a similar questing to unlock system, which works well, although can be hard at times to figure out on your own. But a lot of guides for unlocking pets and characters have been very well made on the Steam forums. Shops can also be found along different branching paths, along with rest areas. However, expect most nodes to be combat. Each combat node has an optional combat difficulty multiplier, where if selected, an additional reward can be earned upon winning that specific fight. Some of these are better than others and need to be assessed thoughtfully, especially on later maps and higher difficulties. Each map has unique enemies based on its biome, unique mini-bosses, and encounters. A unique boss can be found on the last node that you must defeat before moving on to the next map and town. Synynthia will have you fight crazed farmers controlling wild sheep and popcorn shooting corn on the cobs. Yes. You will encounter werewolves, boars, dryads, and trunkies, all culminating in the fight with Ylmer, a gigantic tree boss with a dryad and a trunky at his side. However, a roleplay event before the fight can result in an advantage or disadvantage going into the fight, depending on your success or failure. I don't want to spoil the whole game for you, but I will go over a few enemies on each map alongside some of my favorite bosses. There are 3 different maps you can go to after defeating Ylmer. You will have to cross all of them eventually to get to the last map, so their order is really up to you. Volcarth, where you must make your way up to the top of the volcano where the boss is waiting for you. This map is based on a lot of fire damage, as you can probably tell by the lava everywhere. Enemies here are a mix of rock golems, imps, and fire mages and warriors, with an optional passage into the Black Forge or Colosseum, with each offering their unique scenarios. The Aquarfall Marsh, a swampy water and ruin type map, where you must venture deep into the swamp to find the boss. Enemies here focus on poison and lightning damage. You'll encounter giant mosquitoes, frogs, and seahorses, and a Crocoman mafia operates in these parts and can be found deep in the tunnels here, along with an optional boat ride from Jack the Boat Seller and the Spider Lair, which will add an extra layer of peril to your journey. The third map will take you to the Feyborg Forest, an ice-based biome, with owls and ice squirrels that look like Sandy. Angry elves roam the forest here, with even meaner dragonborn folks patrolling around. You must make your way to the city center, where there you will find this map's boss. Will you go through the front gates, take a flanking route alongside the eastern shoreline wall, or maybe enter through the sewers? That wraps up the first 4 maps. After defeating all of these, you will have to cross the Obelisk, which will take you to the 5th map, the Void. The Void looks great. Floating platforms, monuments, a giant library, and an airship, with all paths leading to you to a massive tower with a winding staircase going up it. Enemies here take a turn for the more mechanical, as you will fight magical suits of armor. Archers, swordmasters, sorcerers, and priests, all fighting to keep you away from that tower. Once you reach the tower, you're greeted by the Twins. The Twins are 2 massive mechanical golems with massive shields on each one of their arms. The boss mechanic is interesting and can take some time to master. However, once you defeat the Twins, the stairs just beg you to go up them, which upon doing so, you will find yourself in the Upper Void, where a massive obelisk stands tall in the middle of the cyclone that surrounds it. After a bit of exposition, you will face off with Lord Handshake. Kill him and your mission will be successful. The difficulty for me here jumped a bit. Learning his moves and the extra health he has was interesting. However, after a couple of tries, I figured it out. I'm not going to reveal exactly what the fight is like because I'd like people to experience that for themselves, but once you do defeat him and bask in all your glory, that's when things start to really heat up. After defeating Lord Handshake, the game decides to throw you a curveball and reveal the true final boss, Archon Nier. Now, the first time I played this, I didn't really see this coming, and after sweating bullets and using 100% of my brain on the previous fight, he was intimidating. However, I find this boss easier than the last. Now, it might be because you fully heal at the start of this fight, whereas with Lord Handshake, you have to fight him with whatever health you got to him has, but regardless, defeating these 2 made me let out an audible sigh of relief. If beating adventure mode becomes too trivial for your killer party, then that's where madness levels come into play. There are 16 madness levels in total, whereas by default you will start at madness 0. all making the game more difficult by affecting enemy health and damage dealt and etc. You unlock each new Manus level by beating the one previous to it. And if that still wasn't enough replayability for you, the game offers up to 4-person co-op where you can each control a single character. Adding DLC on top, which the game has now 3 of them, each adding different cards and maps to the game, there is always plenty to do. In addition to the deep game mechanics that are found in Across the Obelisk, the overall feel of the game is amazing. The music ramps up the further you go towards the end, with the final bosses having some sweet guitar riffs. The attacks all have unique sounds. Fire, holy, rain, bludgeoning, and healing all sound unique and fit very well within the fantasy aspect of the game. The werewolves will howl, and those corncob guys, yeah, it sounds like popcorn popping when they shoot at you. Even better is the characters. All of them, including enemies, have little details that just really add to the atmosphere of the game. The 2D animation style really complements them well, and although the animations are very simple and basic, they work and are very well choreographed. My personal favorites are Gustav, the rock minstrel sporting a lute and a big feathered hat. Otis, as mentioned previously, well, he's a Pope pig. Cornelius is a blind pyromancer with 40k-esque candle shoulder pads, and Bree, a deer-human hybrid warden of the forest who wears druidic armor and is just shredded. The card art is also very easy to identify as to what each card kinda does even before you read the text, which is a good thing as you start recognizing them and help you while learning the game. To wrap up this video, Across the Obelisk is one of my favorite deck builders out there. I'm sure I forgot to mention some things as the game is huge, but I always find myself going back to it. I had about 60 hours in the game when I started writing this, and had not touched the DLCs at all. I have unlocked all base characters, but I'm still leveling them up. The weekly challenges break up the more linear path of the story and is appreciated, but adventure mode still holds the #1 spot in my opinion. I will for sure keep playing this game in the future and will look forward to adventuring in the DLCs released. As of now, that's my video. Please like, subscribe, or just let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!